So yeah, hi everybody. As I said, I'm Fabiana. I work at LeanIX. I'm a customer success manager, so mainly trying to help as much as I can my customers to better use LeanIX with all their use cases and everything that they bring related to architecture, enterprise, business, and so on. So I'm gonna first give a bit of an intro into LeanIX, and then hopefully Brad can join me. So as any company, LeanIX tries to solve a problem. In this case, more of an IT-focused problem. So talking about software complexity, that view not only for our IT team, but for the business. A lot of industries don't know how much IT can impact them or can even be something that differentiates them from anywhere else. So we're trying to solve as much as we can the complexity that software or technology in general can be, right? And with that, we're trying to lower your costs, help with your agility and quality, not only of your own software, but also the quality of the data that you've been sharing with leadership or whoever is interested in this kind of information, right? So going to my next slide here. So big trends that we are seeing from industries in general, and not only IT. I'm talking about insurance, I'm talking about medical, I'm talking about banks, finance, investments. We're seeing everybody pay a lot of attention in IT, focusing a lot of trying to solve that complexity, and from like focusing on APIs or software as a service, or even trying to develop things with low code or even no code at all. So with that in mind, you also have to manage all of that information. It's easy to develop thousands and thousands of APIs, and nobody knows how much you're managing it, how much effort you're spending into it, who is being impacted by all those APIs. Or even software as a service or SaaS. We're buying it, it's easy to buy. You can get your credit card and anyone in your company can buy it, but how do you manage this? How you're gonna keep this in your company as a business, right? The business doesn't only take care about the money, but is it working for you? Is it doing the proper job that it should for you? And if we're trying to get into the development side of things, how is the maintenance of everything? Or when there is a big impact related to, oh, we have some security issues and everything, how do we map all of this? And how can we mitigate risk before it even happens, right? So LeanIX tries to solve all of that. As I'm going to show, have 3 different products, and they have 3 different focuses, but all trying to solve this thing that is risk, that is this view of your landscape in the best and simplest way. So what we're trying to do is pretty much what we show here. We're trying to be the Google Maps for software. There are a couple of ways to go it. You can go into a more high level. I just want to see, let's say, my countries or my domains capabilities and what that entails, or I can go deeper of what is the microservice, what is the library, what is the tech stack, what is the cost invoice, and so to the higher level or even to the details. But you want to make that visibly pleasing to every single person, from a C-level to a lower level person or a developer or who else wants to see all of that. So going back here, I'm going to explain a little bit about our 3 products. But today, when my presentation with Brad, we're going to focus on the center one, which is the enterprise architecture management, because we want to focus on business architecture, right? As the whole point of all of this is. So just so I explained, we talked about the 3 sides of things. So SaaS management. So as I mentioned, it's hard to keep track of how much SaaS you're having into your landscape in general, or shadow IT, or how you're managing those contracts. Are we actually using all the things that we have Are we using well? Are we spending more money than we should? And so that product is focused on getting that visibility for you. And when we go to the enterprise architecture, we focus on what applications we have and how they're helping my business, my capability, right? So I have my business capability map. I know what my company does. Well, but how does my company do all of this? I need applications. I need components that are technical, so that can support those applications to support my business. And even if I have all of those, if I have big applications that are a bunch of modules, are they all working for my team? Why am I keeping all of this list of inventory of applications if they're not working? Or what is the risk of that IT landscape is bringing me? And focusing a little bit more on business architecture, I want to see how my business is using all of that, but also the dependencies. And I want to make sure that every single persona or every single role in my company can come easily to LeanIX and see, oh yeah, this is the part that interests me. I want to see this specific business capability, all the people involved in this, so my user groups that are involved in this, any business processes that are into it, but also I want to go to the technical side. I want to see the applications. I want to see the components that are related to those applications. When we go a little bit to the right side on the value stream management, we go into the technical value stream management. So we're going to go down into more technical components, usually custom made or homegrown components, trying to auto discover those for you, because as any developer would say, it's hard to keep track of everything that we're making. So we want to make sure that you just connect to whatever you have, to your CI/CD pipelines, repositories, and we discover all that for you. Easy to manage, connect between our products, so you get the view from the business to the technical, including metrics, deployments, and so on. So going to the next one right here. As I said, our three products, they have specific functionalities in each of them, and focusing on the center one right there, you can see that we have three modules, very focused on different use cases that we talk about. One is APM, which is our base for the EAM product, which is application portfolio management. So we need to get all your application, that relationship to the business, and all that core functionality that we need to build off any other use case. Whenever we're going to the second and third one showing there, we get to the technology risk management. So we offer services like a lifecycle catalog that can help you assign the life cycles for your components, technical components, to know when you should retire applications or when you should think about the obsolescence risk of those applications. And then when we talk about the BTM module, it's about the business transformation. It's going back to the business, to the objectives that your business have. If it's reducing 20% of your costs, or if it's OKRs that you have, or however you want to build that strategy. But that strategy has to become or put into a plan as projects or transformations. And so how do I tie that back to my current landscape and what is going to be my future landscape? So that's the three modules that make up this product that we have called Enterprise Architecture Management. So the idea here is for me to go over with Brad with some of the use case that UCare specifically went through, focusing a little bit more on business architecture. So when we talk about, and I'm going to speak a little bit on my next one, which I'm going to start more of a question and answers, just to try to guide us through an idea of a journey. I always like to say that architecture, business, enterprise, or whatever transformation really that you're trying to do, in your landscape or in technology in general, it's not something that you do it once and you're done. It's a transformation, it's a journey, right? Some people, as Brad would probably describe it, it's more of a marathon, right? You're thinking about the end goal when everything is going to be fine. You're going to do all the goals that you prepared so long for, but it's always a journey. You have to think about every single step. You have to go mile per mile and think about the foundation that you're building, if it's the training or if it's getting people excited about the topic or getting people that you know about this to join this journey with you. So let me get in so my question, and hopefully Brad will be able to join us as soon as I finish this part, but how do you see your journey in business architecture? When I ask this question, and please join in the comments and however you guys can put in here. But like, I want to know the journey related to the challenges, not only that you saw before you started this journey, but the ones that you see through this journey, right? The people is really, it's a good thing and a hard thing at the same time. You want to get as many people as you can involved in this, but in the beginning, it's very hard to get people's attention to all of this, right? But also always keeping in mind our targets. Seeing just the final product doesn't get us anywhere. Sometimes we have that anxiety and then we just freeze. We don't do anything because the target seems too far away. So that's when we get to the deliverables, right? Let's go one thing at a time. What are what is the next step? So is the first one, oh, maybe finding a tool. Maybe, oh no, babe, maybe it's just understanding internally what we want to do with all of this. What's the benefit of all of this? So understanding all of that will help us get us started in this journey of business architecture. So I'm gonna see here if Brad can join us. While we were reading on that, I did see. So there's a question here, and oh, sorry, someone.
Yeah, I was going to say, while we're waiting, while we're working on it, we're working on getting Brad in. And by the way, Matthew, thank you for your message that Brad is trying to get in. So we are working on it. But let's go ahead and answer this question here from Henry in the meantime, if you would.
Yeah, sure. So our value stream module is very focused on the technical side of value stream, not the business architecture or the business value stream that you see. There are a couple with LeanIX having the flexibility that we do have, and Brad will even share how he did it personally. But there are ways to map your business value stream into LeanIX, even though our value stream module is very focused on the technical value stream. So going from pipelines to back to that product level. So I'm not sure if that was clear enough, but our EAM module is more focused on the business architecture side, and the value stream module goes more a technical side of things for this.
Cool. Great. And we'll just see if there are any other comments here. I'm going to show another one here for you. We are still working on getting Brad in, so we'll give you a couple more in the meantime.
Sounds good. So yeah, LeanIX, as you mentioned right here, it's based in fact sheets or what we call our data model. So we understand that we have partially, or what we call the base with our base meta model or data model, however you want to call it, to get into any of those domains or core domains of architecture, from business to enterprise and so on. The fact sheets or the data model is extendable enough that you can create more fact sheets than our data model initially has, for you to guide exactly for that. If you want to, some depends a lot on the client. So some want to focus more on business architecture, others focus more on solution architecture or integration architecture. So we give you a base, and then you can build off of that based on what you want to focus on.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I don't see any questions just yet, so we're going to keep working on getting Brad onto the platform. It's just a matter of getting him here. And in the meantime, keep rolling as you see fit.
Okay. Yeah, I can try to go. It's more of Brad's part on this. But yeah, so I'm gonna skip that, and maybe Brad can tell a little bit more. But and maybe asking already to the audience some of the biggest challenges that you've seen. So actually, I'm gonna go back a couple of slides and ask you, what was one of the biggest challenges that you've seen? And I don't know how much you guys know about LeanIX, or how do you see a tool like LeanIX helping you with that? And just understanding, like, what are the challenges? How did you go through? I know, and I can tell a little bit of what I've heard from the clients that I have, or even from my personal experience as of more of the technical side when I was. A lot of the requests that we got was really like, I don't know how to justify all of this to my business, right? I don't know how to show my business or to my business users what they're using, what is our landscape, or how much we have already that they can reuse. So going to my capabilities point, I have levels and levels of capabilities, or I define my whole map of capabilities. And I can see that sometimes I use more applications in one side than I'm using the other, because they are the focus of my business, right? When we go to a business capability map, I can certainly put in things that differentiate me from whatever other business there are. So if I'm an insurance company, what makes me different, and how technology in this focus right now is making me that way. So, and regarding LeanIX specifically, as I said, we're based on fact sheets. And for people that don't know what fact sheets are, they're pretty much like a way of storing stuff. But we have what we call a data model. So different types of records or fact sheets that we call it relate to each other. We do have business capabilities, we have applications, we have user groups. So business capabilities are very focused on functions of your business, while user groups are really people that are using those applications. They sometimes don't match. Like a group of people that you would assume supports one specific capability, they're using more applications than what that application supports in a capability side. So I'm going to show up here a few of, and I'm going to skip a few, of the challenges that Brad saw, or UCare in general saw when they were starting their journey. And if you guys can put maybe on the chat and the comments, if one of them or multiple of these happened to you, or you saw that happening, or other challenges that you might have seen during this journey. I think getting what is the core of this, I think it's people. We always, and you can see some of the challenges here, you see business leads, technical leads, and you see availability all the time. People are always super busy. So it's important to make sure that you also care about their time. I think 1 and 2 tend to be very focused on the business applications. Sometimes what we understand as applications are very different in the levels that you talk to people, right? And then you go to the second challenge, which is like, oh, I need business leads or business owners to give me their perspective about how this all is working for them. I can only give guidance on transformation or understand more about this if they tell me what's happening, but they also have limited availability. This is, and I always say when people get LeanIX, I know that LeanIX is not your full job. We don't want you to be 24 hours in LeanIX just putting in data, but we want more people in. And one of the really cool things, in my opinion, about LeanIX is that our subscription or our contracts are not based on how many people join or how many people can edit this. We want more and more collaboration. We want more people in, as much as we can, as much information as we can get, really. So going back here into how to also engage more people, right? You can get if you go into a person's desk and you're like, yeah, tell me about this application. It's nice. It will give you some information. You will update your fact sheets or update LeanIX with all of that. But how is that benefiting your business if nobody will look at it, right? So how do you engage all of these people? How do you make it easier and easier for them to go through all of that? So I'm gonna go on, and hopefully Brad can join me. Whenever I brought this question, and this is a very big question that we go through, and I go through personally with all my clients in the beginning of onboarding with LeanIX. Oh, Brad is joining.
Thanks. Yeah, we have been on a journey. It's been a great journey. It's been over 3 years, and we have had the opportunity to recognize as an architecture team that we had a lot of energy and a lot of passion, and the architects wanted to really go fast with implementing LeanIX and beginning to see our first enterprise architecture solution. But we realized that this wasn't going to be a sprint, and this was going to be more like a marathon. And that's really where the story begins. And as Fabi is showing, we've got the Boston Marathon that is represented in the pictures here, and we're going to be making this presentation out in Boston in a couple of weeks. And there's a lot of parallels of the Boston Marathon and what we have been doing. So it's not a sprint, and this definitely is a marathon. And if you would please indulge me a little bit, I'd like to weave the Boston Marathon into the story that we're about ready to share. There we go. And the next slide. Thanks. It is all about the preparation. You know, runners face many challenges in their marathon training. And that's why runners will actually have a plan. And with a plan in place, you can actually come to realize you can run 5 miles, 10 miles, 15, 20, 26.2 miles. You can. And a plan helps you to realize that. And what we recognized as a team at UCare is we had a number of challenges to overcome in our training before we actually got to the point of beginning on our marathon journey. First off, our architects know Sparks EA, and we could use that as a viable option. Our data team knows Irwin, and that's another enterprise tool, but it doesn't quite fit. We had needed to overcome that challenge, as well as ServiceNow. We have ServiceNow, so why not use ServiceNow? And we already have it. We needed to overcome that challenge. And in the end, we saw that using the sandbox and visualizing our enterprise in a proof of concept, that we could start to see the future. We could start to see using LeanIX. And this truly was the beginning of us setting the foundation of what was to come. Over on the right, you'll see that there's a picture. Our account executive at the time, Tiffany Harrington, she was a runner, and we got to talking about running, and I expressed at the point of beginning the proof of concept, you know, I'm thinking about running down a hill in Seattle, a mountain. And she signed up, and I signed up, and here you see the picture of us on the morning of the marathon in August of 2019, after we'd spent about 7 months in the proof of concept and we were about ready to start using LeanIX, and we did about 2 weeks after this picture. You can see the smiles on our faces at the beginning of the marathon. All right, we're ready for the next slide. Thanks. Now it's marathon day. And marathoners know that it's all about pacing well and being ready for the challenges. Over on the left-hand side, you'll see that that's a wristband for the Boston Marathon, and runners will put these on their wrists, look at each mile marker, and know if they're on pace to achieve the goal. In 2018, there was a lot of inclement weather in the Boston Marathon. Here we see a runner from 2018, and she's striving through that cold rain on that day. And similar to overcoming those challenges, we had challenges to overcome in our implementation. And as you see in these different bubbles, first one was business application. What is it? And how do we determine who the owners are? The business leads had limited availability, and we wanted to address the time that they had. Our tech leads as well, they had a limited availability. We've also seen another challenge that people are using spreadsheets, Word documents, well after we've implemented LeanIX. And why is that? And we'll delve into how to overcome that challenge. The broader IT community and the broader business community are our current challenges and how to reach out to them in the most effective way. And we'll get more into that. And Fabi has nicely put into red font on this page the bubbles that really apply most closely to business architecture.
So I can even jump in here. One of the challenges that we talked about, Brett, and I was even mentioning that this is a question that every single client goes through during our onboarding or even down the line, expanding that use to other people in the company. So how did you define a business application, or what was the thought process of going through all of that?
Yeah, thanks. This is a great question. It was actually one of the first questions that we needed to address. What is a business application? Because our developers and on many different teams, they have their own view of what an application is. Our software architect, our enterprise architect, the data architect, and the business teams all had slightly different views of what an application is. And that's so critical in coming together in a consensus and deciding what will be a business application for us and why. And the three criteria that bubble to the top for us are something called the circle map in LeanIX. And within this visual, you see the handoffs between one application and another, or one application and an outside party. If we wanted to see those handoffs with this application, that was a top criteria to meet. The application UI, and do business teams use it? A secondary criteria. And the third, if it's an external partner and we want to see those handoffs, we're going to turn the name of the partner into an application. That was a real milestone to come up with our list of about 130 applications at that time. And the next challenge for us was determining who are the owners. Who are the owners? The IT owners of these applications. And we wrestled with that, and that's been something we looked at for the first time. Oh yeah, actually back on the previous slide. And once we did, that really was our great success criteria for helping us form a good foundation for all of our applications and for our project moving forward implementing. The second half on the right-hand side of this slide, you'll see that the next step in our building blocks was to determine where our source of truth is. And we have an enterprise application service now where we have the CMDB, and we have now LeanIX. And where did we want to originate the applications? And when looking at the rigor of the process that we have in place for bringing applications into the organization, it was determined ServiceNow is the best place for us to bring and introduce applications. we'll integrate those back to LeanIX. At the same time, we're going to add, for the first time, the value stream stages that we have in our single value stream. We'll associate those, one or more, with each application. And in the result, for the first time ever, we have our enterprise view of business applications by value stream stage, which they in part automate. And we're able to show that with certain metadata. How well do they meet our functional needs? Do they meet our technical roadmaps in several different ways? What's the life cycle of each of these applications? So now we can start to understand the portfolio through this particular lens. And our CIO at the time didn't say, you have 2 months to implement all of this and just go ahead and get it done. Rather, each time we came up with a milestone to achieve, he said, show us the value, show us why this is important. And that's what we have adopted at each step of the way. So we've been set up for success, we think, right from the beginning. All right. Thanks. Now we're on to addressing our business leads, and they have a limited time and availability. So we wanted to come up with 2 different approaches based on how much time I might have available. And you'll see we're at mile marker 6 in the Boston Marathon. Well, we start over on the left with a classic SIPOC model, and we're looking at, with each department, who are their direct customers, whether it be departments and or external third parties, and who are their customers, their direct customers. Who do they give handoffs to directly, internal or external? And on the lines in the SIPOC, of course, are the handoffs, and that's the level of abstraction that we're giving to this SIPOC model. That informs our first enterprise business capability model, and it informs our high-level business process as well. And with that information, we align them with the applications that are being automated and the business capabilities that are being enabled, and bring those into LeanIX. That's level 1. The level 2s and level 3s, if the departments have more time available, we'll dive further into those details in order to get more rich information out in the visual reports that you see on the right-hand side. So those are visual representations of the application matrix and the application landscape, just to give a sense for why we're doing this. And we'll walk through these 2 approaches with business teams. Okay, now we're at the midway point in our marathon. And there is a secret to running a marathon and to running it well. And that is to increase pace at the midway point, which seems counterintuitive, but when you do, it shows that you've both trained to be able to do that, and you're likely setting yourself up to have a personal best, personal record at the end of that marathon. So that's the marathoner's secret, and now you know.
And so going back to the people, and we've talked about this, you implemented 2 ways to get them, or more ways than that to get them, but how was to get people to invest really, not only time, but really a lot of effort into getting good things into LeanIX, moving away from all those documents, notes, spreadsheets into LeanIX, and not making them go back to those every time they need something?
Yeah, thanks. There's been different approaches we have tried with different teams. There's the business teams and the IT teams. This next slide addresses reaching out to the broader business community. And our organizational change lead at UCare guided us in wanting to ask these 4 different types of questions, because we knew that we were going to be asked, so let's find the answers ahead of time. What's in it for the department? Why are we doing this? And why are we doing this now at this time of the year? There could be some seasonal differences for the different departments that we're working with. We wanted to be mindful of their time of the year. And how is this related to our mission and to our vision? So these are key points, I think, that have helped us when addressing and working with each of the business teams. And when they've been able to see why this is important, they've been better able to spend the time, invest the effort, while seeing those potential outcomes. Here we are, mile marker 16. And moving forward, we wanted to be able to help business teams see the future. We wanted to help them see it in one screen, if you could. And so here's a visual that illustrates business capabilities at the top of the organization, high-level value stream stages, application, data architecture, and infrastructure architecture. And if you take one particular use case, let's say we're making a change for how we enroll members into our plans, that could involve these three different departments and high-level business capabilities. The first two value stream stages will be impacted. You see the application architecture and the data architecture parts that would be then impacted. And then towards the bottom, what servers are supporting all of those IT components, and ultimately what OS is involved in case there's any changes needed there. So when our business teams see that this is what we're now going to be able to do, and be able to see the downstream impacts, they're more inclined to invest the time and invest the effort to help us understand what those impacts are, better be able to plan for and mitigate. Thanks. So why do teams continue relying on the MS Office suite, spreadsheets and documents and OneNotes? Those are really good questions to have answers to and to know why. And so we've found three good examples that I'm going to walk through and share with you how these three examples represent champions and our change adopters. The first one is Linda, App Web Dev Supervisor, and she and her team were working through recognizing what are all the servers that our on-prem SharePoint applications were on, and how are they being supported. The developer notes were all stored in spreadsheets. And as I worked with the team to put the relationships between applications and servers into LeanIX, this kind of visual came up. And when it came up for the first time, the teams could then see the interdependencies of the apps on different servers. They're better able to plan how they're going to move to the cloud this year and go off the on-prem applications. And that kind of planning efficiency was a huge aha moment for this team. Our next example is Natalia. She's a tech lead, and she received the benefit. Of course, she wants to understand how systems all relate as a solution architect, a technical lead. She was set up for success because of a previous solution architect had put all of the relationships of the consuming applications, interfaces, and all of the different producing interfaces out of the applications involved in the area that she was going to make some change. And she was able to, with just a little bit of instruction, see those interfaces and better understand her solution space. She was a believer right off the bat. She was able to come up to speed truly in a fast way because the person before her had taken all the time to put that information into LeanIX. We're promoting this as a great example for how new team members can become much more efficient more quickly and better understand and better be able to ask questions by putting those solutions into LeanIX. Next example is Josh. He's an ITSM lead. And of course, Josh is concerned with understanding the upstream and downstream impacts when there's an incident that's called in. He's interested in all of the information that other people have put into LeanIX, might have been in OneNote before, and the relationships in LeanIX, as noted by those red ovals, are brought over to ServiceNow because of our integration with ServiceNow. And Josh works in ServiceNow primarily. When he brings up an incident, he'll say, oh, well, this particular server is down. What else is on that server? And he can then quickly see who he can call proactively. Maybe there are user groups to reach out to. And in this way, Josh is a good example for change adoption. He just had one win and saw how important this was. And so even though he's not contributing the knowledge into LeanIX, others are. So he's encouraging others to do that, put that effort in, put in the time.
Yep, and when we're talking about people still, it's always important to know not only how they can contribute, but also like all the personas, or because we're not talking about one individual, we're talking about their role in this whole organization part of it. And so how did we, or how did UCare, you, the team, identify the personas interested in which content or report or whatever we had in LeanIX that interested them specifically?
Yeah, this is a really nice question. Thank you for asking it, Fabi. It really tees up the stakeholder persona story. And the visual that Fabi is currently showing it's about a 12-foot wide visual if you were to put it onto paper. I'm going to break that down. We're going to take a look at the left side, working our way to the right, and really share with you what we were trying to accomplish, and ultimately then how we're using it and how we're increasing our pace in our journey. The first slide delves into where does the story begin. We wanted to show the contributors after they are starting to invest their time and efforts. We wanted to show them who's receiving the benefit of what they're doing. And one of the first steps is to identify that small group of contributors, which fact sheets within LeanIX they're updating, and which reports are primary beneficiaries of their efforts. So first off, they can actually go to see the reports that they're contributing all of that content for. So that's the first way that we can show them the value that they're bringing the organization, not just their project teams. Now they're sharing it. That's where it begins. We're at mile 20 now in the marathon. And as we go to the next slide, we start to ask ourselves, where's the value? Ultimately, we'd like to look at these specific enterprise architecture use cases, more strategic towards the top, and as we move down, more operational, sort of a mix in the middle. And what we did is then identified all of the stakeholders at UCare that would receive value from each of these EA use cases. So this is very specific to UCare, but I'm sure it can be utilized by other organizations in a very similar manner, trying to find out which reports are going to best serve these people in these roles. And we're at mile 24, and you can start to feel the pace pick up.
Yeah, and then when we talk about those reports or things, we also go back to how LeanIX did that for you too. I think it's easier to understand, oh yeah, this reporting is important for someone, but also how LeanIX made it easier for that person to get to that report or get to that information too.
Yeah. And that's a nice way to describe the value that the LeanIX has provided us while we were creating this persona story. And Fabi, I want to thank you again for that. It was a great aha moment the day that you helped us to see the opportunity to use these collections. I'll talk about that in just a second. And the stakeholder personas you see in this matrix that Fabi is presenting, over on the left, you have the executive teams, and you can start to see in that matrix, see the patterns of reports, some that are would be benefiting certain stakeholders and others not as much. In the middle, we have some project team members, and on the right, we have the different disciplines within the enterprise architecture team. And that represents the different ways we can group these reports for the individuals and make it real for them. And as you go to the next slide, here we are at now mile 26. And I guess there's some animation in the screen, and I'll describe it even though it's something's overlaying.
I think it's, when I uploaded it kind of lost the animation part.
It did. Okay. No worries. I'll speak to it. Over on the right are all of the different personas. And over on the left are the enterprise architecture use cases. And the particular example that we're highlighting on this page is for a project manager. And there are 3 use cases that are noted for this persona. And when that use case model disappears, up would pop all of these different reports that are very important, we believe, to help project managers begin to go into discovery, help them to see the areas of the organization that their project is either making change, or the areas of systems that they're making change, and ask more informed questions. So it's this at this point that when each one of these roles over on the right as personas, when they can see themselves in the tool, and when they can see themselves in the tool, they begin to see the tool as their tool. And we really are starting to see adoption across our business teams and our IT project teams now that they can see themselves in the personas on the right. So this has really helped us a great deal start to speed up the process of user adoption across the organization.
Yep, and just if I can add a little bit on that, I'm gonna even go back a little bit. When I remember when you showed me this gigantic, let's say, diagram, we came up with solutions to put it in LeanIX, and in collections is part of it. But also this view, getting to this view, is also important. So for people that are not familiar with LeanIX, this is not a LeanIX page. This is a Brad diagram, but it's made of every single little box that you might see in the middle. They are reports in LeanIX and associated with each persona. And going back to the other one, the collection, so the right side and the left side, both for use cases and for the actually personas, those are what we call collections, or folders that you can rearrange your reports to show up. So just want to explain a little bit what was the idea and what we did in LeanIX.
Mm-hmm. It's been very helpful for us, and it truly, we have several examples of people seeing themselves this week. Matter of fact, we gave a demonstration to our whole PMO, our project management office, and we used the project manager example. And this was a big aha moment for about 20 people. And it caused energy, it caused questions, it's caused 3 follow-up meetings that, in the coming days since Monday. And they want to see, now, how can I use this on my project? And that's the kind of momentum that we've been looking for. And the use of these collections for these personas has really been advantageous.
So getting to the finish line.
Yeah, thanks. In wrap-up mode at the 26.2 mile mark, you'll see, look at the smiles on these faces, and look at Tiffany. That's one of the biggest smiles I've seen. This was our first marathon, and she rocked it. And there was a lot of excitement. It doesn't look like we just ran a marathon, but it is true. We did run one. So I will throw these challenges out to everyone that's on the call today, to really celebrate each one of the mile markers on your journey with your project teams as you're implementing, and to challenge yourself to increase your pace.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and I think our next slide is mostly for questions, and I ended up doing a few questions before you got in, but I also just wanted to thank everybody for having us, and Brad, for you to join me in this presentation. I really appreciate that. And also, we do have our LeanIX Connect Summit happening in the Americas. It's going to be in Boston and virtual. It's free for you to register. We have some really good people presenting, including Brad again. So please join us if you can. And yeah, and if you have any questions, we're happy to go through them.
Brad, Fabiana, Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for such a great talk and for all of your patience. We're so glad you made it here. Paul, did you have any comments or questions you wanted to ask?
No, I wanted to thank you for working through those issues with us. I do want you to know that everything got recorded. We now have 4 live streams going, and so we actually have quite a number more viewers. We're working on making sure that the questions can get funneled through to you. Something with StreamYard and LinkedIn just decided that they didn't like each other for this time, but it was an awesome presentation, and I actually have some questions that I'd like to talk to you about some other time, but thank you so much. Just wanted to make that announcement. The YouTube channel and the Facebook channel are in the chat and posted all over the place and sent via email to all the attendees. So I'll get off now, sorry.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we have 2 minutes left, so maybe I'll ask you one quick question and then let you share any final words. But, as so much has happened in our world, and architecture has had such a journey and such an uptick. So when you think about the clients that bring you in and the reasons that they bring you in, how has that evolved over time, and sort of what is a snapshot of that today?
Yeah, and Brad, if you want to take that over, or I can.
Yeah, absolutely. Enterprise architecture has evolved over the most recent 10 years. What I find in the business architecture space here at UCare, it's a privilege to introduce for the first time what is a business capability model. What is a high-level business process, and what is a high-level value stream, and why is that important for us to differentiate? And I'll leave this one golden nugget. As I work with the different business teams, and for the first time, they start to be able to speak about true business process without mention of systems, then they can start to speak the same language across their departments and lift up out of applications, out of systems, out of integration, and begin to have those conversations about how they can better improve their handoffs, their relationships with external partners. And I've witnessed an elevated kind of conversation by the business leads across the organization. That's what I've seen as a real benefit of introducing business architecture to the organizations.
Yeah, and if I can just add a comment, I feel like for me, seeing from multiple clients as part of a company that offers a product related to this, I think it came clear to me that the business side is talking a lot more about architecture or IT in general than they were before in like 5 or even 10 years ago.